If your YouTube algorithm is now full of property investment, then you've probably seen lots of videos saying you can invest in property with zero money, which sounds amazing of course, but I've sat down and with my years of experience in property, I've really looked into this. And here's the truth. Yes, it is technically possible, but only if some huge, really tough factors are in place. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly when zero money investing might work, why it's not as easy as people make out, and what I personally do instead if I was starting from scratch with nothing in the bank. So let's get straight into it. What do people actually mean when they say you can invest with no money? The money has to come from somewhere, so it's usually from other people. Most of the time we're talking about using the money of investors, so things like joint ventures, private lenders, or rent-to-rent models. You bring the deals or the skills, and someone else brings the cash. Now that's not impossible to find and do, but it's definitely not easy if you're starting out because it's more tailored to experienced property investors. The partners want returns, they want security, and they want proof that you know what you're doing. And that's where the first massive caveat comes in: credibility. To be honest, without a track record, it's very hard to convince anyone to hand over tens of thousands of pounds. It just doesn't really happen. The second big caveat is risk. Even if you do land a deal, you're going to end up giving up control or equity. So you might end up with 50% of the profit instead of 100% if you invested yourself, or you're paying back interest at a high rate. That's the trade-off for starting with nothing, and it's not cheap. And this is where the hype online creeps in. So all the hyperboles that you usually hear in phrases online, like you'll never have to worry about money again. Unfortunately, property doesn't really work like that. There is risk, there is responsibility, and there's no such thing as a free lunch. So let's jump into what joint ventures, JVs, really are, because that's what we're discussing in general here. Let's head over to my whiteboard to run you through a quick example. So I actually get approached quite a lot by people who want to do joint ventures with me, where they put in the money and then I put in all the effort. But that only happens because I've got experience and a good track record. Everything's tied down legally with contracts and the trust is built on the results that I've delivered before. But here's a simple example. Say you find a property worth 100k and it needs maybe 20k worth of refurb work. So altogether that might cost you 120,000. Let's just exclude fees at this point, just for the simplicity of the example. Your JV partner will pay for all of that. So they'll pay for the purchase and the refurb, and then you'll manage the whole thing and actually do the refurb work. And once you've completed that work, say after a few months of time, it gets revalued and fantastic, it's worth 140,000. You've made £20,000 of profit. However, because you've partnered with someone, and say for example the deal might have been 50% each in terms of the profit, that means that you only get £10,000 of profit, whereas your partner that you're in a joint venture with, they'll also get £10,000 of profit. And so from their perspective, the £10,000 is a reward for the risk that they've undertaken with the money up front, but then on your side, the £10,000 profit is a reward for all the effort that you've put in over several months. So you've done all the legwork for half the reward. That's the reality of joint ventures when you don't bring the money to the table. You'll probably be looking at a split like this. So in reality, say for example, buying a property to selling it again after the refurb takes 3 months. You've only got £10,000 for that 3 months worth of your time. So it's not that much money, but yes, it has technically come from nothing. So personally, I don't really take deals like this. If I'm pouring in the time, stress and work, I'd rather all of the rewards came back to me. So yes, that means taking more risk with my own money, but I prefer to shoulder that myself than risk someone else's money. And because I've done all of my research, all of my due diligence myself, I know the sort of risk that I'm getting in for. Now I run one-to-one sessions with new property investors, and something that comes up time and time again is people being very keen on joint ventures as a way to get started. I totally understand why. It can feel like a shortcut if you just haven't built the cash yet. But the reality is that those opportunities, the ones that are genuine, they rarely appear until you've built credibility first. But that being said, joint ventures can definitely work if it's with people that you know or trust. So think family or close friends, because the credibility and the confidence already exists there. And if you do manage to secure one as a beginner, then that's brilliant. And yes, you'll be giving up a big share of the profit, but you'll also be gaining experience. And long term, that track record is worth more than the money. So you'll only be making maybe £10,000 in this first one, but the following ones you may make 15. And then after that, you make 20 because you'll be looking at bigger and better deals. A few years ago, I almost had no credibility in property investments and DIY renovations at all. And now I've got a shed full of tools for pretty much every purpose I need. The turning point for me was actually during COVID, which was in 2020, when my wife wife and I lived with her grandparents for a while. Her granddad's a sculptor and he had this big barn full of tools. I started spending my evenings building wobbly tables up to shelves, up to wine racks, then to dining tables and chairs. And then when we moved out, I had the confidence to tackle kitchens and bathrooms. And I even dabbled with some electrics with my mate who's a qualified sparky supervising me. And all of this was working a full-time job. And here's the point. I began with barely any skills, I found opportunities to learn with very little money invested, and I put in the hours. And those skills that I developed later gave me credibility and also saved me thousands of pounds on my own projects because I was doing the work myself. And it was that, not £0 joint venture deals, maybe like this, that was the real foundation of my portfolio, and it has brought me to where I am today. So when can £0 investing work? Well, if you've already got strong experience, so maybe you're a builder by trade, maybe you've managed projects before, or maybe you've got a great network, then yes, someone with cash will back you. But for most beginners who don't have that, it's rare and it will take time to build. So that's why my advice is, if you're starting out, use your time to do something different. And you're already doing great by watching videos like this. You can pick up some basic DIY skills with just buying cheap drills and stuff to begin with. And you can keep saving money in the background. Even if you can only build up 20 to 30K over a number of years, you've suddenly got enough for deposit, fees, and maybe even a refurb, and you get to keep 100% of that profit. So to wrap up, yes, investing in property with £0 is technically possible, but it's extremely difficult without any credibility and not the easiest first step. In most cases, you'll be far better off by preparing properly so when you do eventually invest, that you're in a strong position. And just to leave you with some contrast, if you can save up £20,000, I've done a video over here on how that picture would look and how you can get started with that amount of money. And it will show you the power of doing it with your own money yourself. And remember, you get to keep 100% of that profit, and that's the power of using your own money. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit like and please subscribe. And don't forget, I've also got free resources on my website that can help you get started in the right way. I'll put the link down below. Catch you in the next one.